It's time for the best coverage of the top stories in sports. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page starts now.
Welcome to a Thursday edition of the Sports Wrap. I am Jason Page. Sammy Arnell will be here. Jason Cole, senior NFL insider at Outkick.com, will be on the show as well. We'll talk about the passing of a complicated basketball legend in Bobby Knight, why NFL teams could use a little patience. We'll also preview the Thursday night NFL matchup and have our first half NFL awards to give out. But we start things in Major League Baseball, where a champion has been crowned. The Texas Rangers win their first World Championship. Shut out the Diamondbacks last night in Phoenix. They win the Fall Classic in 5 games. Texas won 90 games this year, and let's be honest, they had as tough a road as you could possibly have to win a World Series. They took down a talented Rays team, albeit without Wander Franco. They beat a 100-win Orioles team, the defending world champion Houston Astros, and a Diamondbacks team that played its best baseball of the year in October. They are a deserving champion. But what does it ultimately say about baseball? That all the best teams were sitting at home for weeks watching the playoffs instead of advancing in them. Is this just a one-year phenomenon, or is it the era of expanded playoffs? It's going to see a team that isn't necessarily the best in baseball being the one that lifts the Commissioner's Trophy? We'll have to see. Bob Nightengale is the senior MLB writer at USA Today. He does a terrific job over there. Bob, we've had the overnight to let it settle in. What do you deduce from the Rangers winning it all?
They spent money, and they went and got a Hall of Fame manager, Bruce Bochy. It all came together. I mean, they had a ton of adversity. They had 25 guys or 25 injured list stints, including to many of their top players, including Jacob deGrom. Corey Seager was out for a long time, on and on and on. But they just a resilient bunch. And just give credit there to leadership, whether it's Chris Young, the GM, Bruce Bochy, the Hall of Fame manager, coaching staff, but just the makeup of those guys. I mean, they look like they were dead in early September. They look like they were going to, pull away, win that division, lose the division the last hit of the season. Then, like you said, Jason, went to Tampa with their underdog, Baltimore underdog, Houston underdog. They were finally the favorites against the Diamondbacks, and played great baseball.
It's remarkable to see a team win every game on the road. I mean, I heard Bruce Bochy being asked about it last night, and he's given all credit to his players and all. It's just remarkable to see. I mean, I can't ever recall watching a team this dominant on the road in the playoffs. And this was a team that was, I think, a game under 500 during the regular season on the road. How do we account for it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a mind-boggling. You look at the Houston Astros. I think they were 40-46 at home this year. One game away from the World Series. Like 2019, Nationals lost every game at home, won every game on the road. So I think it just shows that there's home field advantage. So what in baseball is not a big deal. I think it might be distractions. You're going to have a lot more distractions at home than the road. But that being said, in the World Series, everybody's families are there. Bruce Bochy told me, 9 people in his place, with the kids and grandkids and all that. So yeah, you just don't know. But it's a strange thing. But I really do believe, unlike NBA, unlike football, home field advantage, does not mean anything.
No, it certainly doesn't. You look at the way the Rangers built this thing, though, and it's almost the perfect build. You move into a new ballpark. That was all during COVID, so everything was kind of screwed up for a couple of years in that role, and they played host to the COVID World Series. But, this is how teams always dream of doing it, right? You build a brand new ballpark, you go and hit free agency hard, and then you hope it all comes together. I mean, it could not work out any better for this ownership group.
No, you're absolutely right, Jason. I mean, they put that Texas Live area, started in St. Louis at the Ballpark Village. Atlanta's got now the Battery, Xfinity Live in Philadelphia. But this is the way to do it, and that's a gold mine. So you're just going to make more and more money there, and it's free money. You don't have to share that with the other owners. Too bad for the COVID thing for them. They did have the World Series there without them in 2020 when the Dodgers won it. But yeah, this is how you do it. They spent smart money. I mean, they had Semien step up all year. Played in every single game, more plate appearances than any player in history. And of course, Corey Seager, what he did. Evaldi was a free agent. John Gray was a free agent. So they spent their money wisely, where a lot of these teams don't even bother looking at character. They just throw money at a guy and think, okay, the talent will be fine, and blows up in that clubhouse.
The Rangers have the third best odds along with the Astros for the 2024 World Series in the way too early to look ahead portion of this conversation. But is there anything that tells you the Rangers are going anywhere? That doesn't feel – it feels like this thing is built to last, isn't it?
It should last. I mean, I can have the ground back, again next year. But, yeah, there's no reason why it can't last. Hey, Atlanta's going to be back. We know they'll be in the playoffs. They'll win the NL East again. I'm going to pick the Dodgers to win that division, until the day I die. And they're always going to win the NL West. And they'll be back. It'll be interesting what they do. I think they're going to spend some money this winter, go get a big-time starter. And, they ran away with the division anyway. But this time I think they're going to look like, hey, we got to be built for October and not just the other 6 months.
Well, we're talking about a Diamondbacks team that loses out on this opportunity. And, much like where we talk about the Rangers being a team that we think is going to be back in this position, you get the feeling this might have been a one-and-done opportunity for the Diamondbacks, don't you?
I'm not sure about that, Jason. I mean, except for Evan Longoria, may retire. They're going to get an everyday third baseman. They're not going to have Gurriel. But otherwise, everybody's coming back. I mean, you still got Gallen and Merrill Kelly and Brandon Pfaadt at top of the rotation. You got some money coming off the books and Mark Melancon. You still stuck the Madison Bumgarner contract for a couple more years. But do they strike you? But
do they strike you as a team that's going to go out and try to make big splashes in the offseason to get them to a point where they're more than an 84-win team? Because the way I look at it is, all right, they won 84 this year. They really were leaking oil coming down the stretch to the finish line from where they were, say at the All-Star break. But 84 wins, that could just as easily be 78 and 84 next year with this roster, couldn't it?
Well, remember this team now in late June, they had the best record in baseball. They just kind of fell apart the second half. They were on a 100-win, 105-win pace for a long time. So all the young athletic guys, I think they'll be just fine. I'm not saying they're going to win the West. It's still going to be the Dodgers. But I would be surprised if they're not back as a wild card team. Is
the lesson for teams around baseball to go all in instead of, being sellers at the deadline? Is Rob Manfred smiling because this is going to inspire teams that, might just be a wild card team, and some teams are like, well, can we win from the wild card spot? Does this help Rob Manfred's argument for teams to not do the fire sale at the deadline and try to either stay pat or improve themselves?
Well, I think it might help the argument like you don't have to spend a ton of money to get to the World Series. I mean, that's why we saw the Mets, Yankees, Padres all sitting home. The Diamondbacks, like you mentioned, they won 84 games. So teams are saying, wait a minute now, I don't have to construct a roster to win 100 games. How about, a high 80s? How about a 90-win team, as long as we get in? And also, you're right, at the deadline next year, it may tell teams like, let's don't sell off. Cleveland Guardians were one game out of playoffs, one game out of the AL Central title last year, and they gave up. Baltimore Orioles didn't do anything to help themselves a couple of years ago. So I think it might tell GMs, just get in. You never know. We may make a long run.
The story shifts now to the offseason. Oh, I know you're dreading it. We got to talk about it, though. Shohei Ohtani is going to go somewhere. How long do you think this process plays out?
I think it'll play out nearly as long as people think. I still think it gets done in December. I don't see him in January sign or February sign, something like that. So I still think the Dodgers are the favorites. I don't rule out the Angels. He's very comfortable there, just like Mike Trout's comfortable there. San Francisco Giants, I think, will offer him the most money. I'm not sure he'll go there. Great place to pitch, not to hit. I don't see anywhere else. I really don't.
Seattle? You don't think, Seattle, man, I'll tell you, management is getting crushed. Jerry DiPoto is getting crushed up there by that fan base for things he said, things he's done. Do you think Seattle makes a play for him?
I think they make a play for him. I just don't see him going there. One, it's, Ichiro country. So kind of following his footsteps. And two, I mean, when people talk about, Ohtani wanting to be in the playoffs, Angels have been in the playoffs a lot more than the Seattle Mariners have. They've been in the playoffs once in 22 years. It's like, if you really want to win, why are you going to Seattle? So I don't see Seattle. I really don't.
Is there another big storyline that you're looking forward to in the offseason?
That's a big one. I mean, I think Juan Soto. I think, okay, where does he go? I think the Padres have to trade the guy. They went nowhere with him. I think it'll be a disaster if they keep him again. I think they got to shake up that clubhouse and move him. We'll see who wants to spend $30-some million his final year, and who actually has a confidence that they think they can sign him when he's a free agent.
Maybe the Yankees. Maybe the Yankees.
Maybe. We'll see. I mean, the thing is, if you're the Yankees, he's going to want at least $450 to $500 million. Are you really going to give this guy $100 million more than Aaron Judge and look at Judge in the eyes and say, "Hey, sorry about that"? I don't see that. I can't see them doing it.
Neither could I. Bob Nightengale, it's been fun talking to you throughout the season. You get a break now. We're not going to bother you for a little while. You get to enjoy some of the offseason and everything that comes with it. Bob Nightengale, USA Today, does a great job on Major League Baseball. Thank you, my friend.
My pleasure, Jason. GM meetings start on Monday, so just like a 2-day off season.
Excellent. Thank you, sir.
Bye now.
All right, we got more World Series reaction coming your way. Sam Yarnell stops by. What did he make of what transpired in Phoenix on Wednesday night? And what does the 2024 World Series odds look like? Plus, Thursday Night Football, we got a preview of that. Who does Sam like? His best bets, my best bets. It's all coming up on the Sports Wrap. Welcome back. Bob Nightengale of USA Today has had his say on the 2023 Fall Classic. Now we say hello to our good friend Sam Yarnell. We'll preview Thursday Night Football with him in a few minutes. But first, Sam, your thoughts on the Rangers closing out the Diamondbacks in 5 on Wednesday night?
Jason, that was quite frankly, you and I talked about it over the course of the last 2 weeks. I thought the Diamondbacks would put up more of a fight in this series, but they just went cold at the worst time possible. They got really hot right at the right time and then got really cold right at the wrong time. So unfortunate, but that's how baseball goes. We see it all the time in this sport, and now we have something to look forward to in February, pitchers and catchers.
Yeah, that's true. But, Sam, I'm left wondering whether or not we're at a point now with baseball with the expanded postseason where, I don't know, every other year, 2 out of 3 years, is the best team actually going to win the World Series? Especially with the format where you've got a week off. This whole thing, and we don't have enough data to know if it's good for baseball, bad for baseball, to have the best teams and the top seeds having to take a week off and then ramp it back up again. It almost feels like much more of a crapshoot with baseball, especially from a betting standpoint, when it comes to trying to pick who's going to win a World Series. After a 162-game regular season, it just feels like much more of a crapshoot to me.
I'm with you, and I will stand by baseball being the hardest sport to bet because of the volatility of the game day in and day out, and that's why you look at futures markets a lot when you look at baseball. Here's the thing. I think this World Series, more than any in the past, I would say 5 years maybe, taught us that the best team in baseball does not win the World Series. Matter of fact, they may not even come close. There's an argument to be made that the Braves were the best team in baseball out in the DS. Dodgers were the best team in baseball at one point out in the DS. Same goes for the Rays. They were the hottest team on the planet to start the season. They didn't make it to the second round either. Baseball is a sport where that's the beauty of it, of the 7-game playoff series, even the 5-game playoff series that go all 5 games. It's part of the magic of baseball. And even in other sports where we have series that go that long, like basketball and hockey, you don't see upsets of the same magnitude. And even when you do, they're not carried out in the same way. It's part of the magic of baseball. But I think with that new playoff format, like you alluded to, we're going to continue to see more of the same. We're going to continue to see your Texas Rangers, your Arizona Diamondbacks, your Baltimore Orioles in the or deep in the postseason. Teams that we're not accustomed to, especially over the last 2 decades.
That brings us to next year. because it's never too early to start looking ahead at 2024. The odds makers have already put the numbers out there for 2024, Sam. The Braves at plus 600, the Dodgers at plus 700, the Rangers at plus 800. Yes, the World Series winner is the third best odds. The Astros there at plus 800 as well, and then you get into the Phillies at plus 1,000 and so on. When you look ahead at next year, what jumps out at you?
So the thing that I learned very on in my sports gambling career that I always try to tell people is when you're looking at those kinds of markets right now, who's going to win the World Series next year, you don't want to look at the best team. You don't even want to think about who maybe has the best chance to win the World Series. Right now, what you're thinking about is which team is going to change the most between now and the end of February, beginning of March, when pitchers and catchers report, even between now and the beginning of May, when we're 2 weeks into the season. That is where you will see the most profit. If you take the Washington Nationals right now at 200-1, yes, 200-1, hope you join me on that island, and they come out next season and Dylan Cruz and James Wood are lighting up the league, that cash out is going to be offering you plus money a month and a half, 2 months into the season. And we can take our profit there and go put it on someone else who we actually think will win the World Series, who made all the right off-season moves to become a contender and do, because the numbers at the top, you're not going to see change very much between now and June 1st, quite frankly. I bet you when we get to June 1st, the Astros will still be right around 8-1. The Phillies will still be right around 10-1. But the Nationals, teams at the bottom, the Mariners, the Twins, I'm sorry, not the Twins, the Angels are kind of a dumpster fire. But you look at teams like the White Sox, Marlins, Guardians, these are all teams that could make a few moves and become an instant contender. So if you're making an investment right now, you put it on a long shot and hope that they get a little closer.
Yeah, be interesting to see how the odds change depending on where Shohei Ohtani winds up as well. All right, let's move to Thursday Night Football, Sam, and talk about this matchup between the Titans and the Steelers, a big game for both teams. Will Levis on a short week after a fantastic performance over the weekend in his debut for the Tennessee Titans. How much of that is fool's gold? How much of that was the team he was playing against? We're not really sure yet, although the early reviews on him seem to be really good. Give me some thoughts on the Steelers and Titans tonight.
Another throw-up game, Jason. We see these all the time on Thursday Night Football, and I'm tired of it. Been saying I'm tired of it since I started coming on the show. These Thursday Night Football games suck, and they're even harder to bet. Nothing good going to come out of this game. But the Titans are a fun team right now. As much as we thought they were going to be a dumpster fire when we got to week 9, maybe in week 4, they're a fun team. Will Levis, hey, I like Mayo. I could get behind it. Why not? DeAndre Hopkins having an awesome year. Hey, if Will Levis and D-Hop can find a connection and Tyjae Spears and Derrick Henry actually start to split time, the Titans could turn their season around. I'm confident in that. Will Levis showed at Kentucky that he is a talented pocket passer. Now, he hasn't faced great competition. That is the knock on him, right? But I'm confident in the kid. He showed me enough in week 1 to tell me that he could go out against a Pittsburgh Steelers defense that is not bad by any stretch of the imagination. Matter of fact, they've got the best defensive player on the planet on their side. I think that Levis gets it done. The Titans plus 2.5 is the fun bet tonight. So that's what we're going to take.
Yeah, I'm looking at the line. Yeah, go ahead.
Titans team total over. Not forget the points. Give me the team total over.
What's
March
the team
them down
total?
The field, Will.
What's the number?
The team total.
Come on, you didn't have it ready?
16.5.
All right, 16.5.
Yup.
The total 36.5 feels so low. I know it's the Steelers, but man, 36.5. It's just daring you, isn't it? It's just daring you to go and throw some money on the over. But I've learned so many times in these situations when the number's set that low, it's set that low for a reason and the game's going to go under. Last week, I took 3 unders in Page versus the Prince. I went 4-0. And some of those were low unders. And I went 4-0. So it leads me to think this is also an under game. Plus 132 for the Titans on the money line. The Steelers are the home team at minus 154. I haven't looked at any of the wagers. If anything, I'm leaning towards the under on this. I think I might go with the Titans at plus 2.5.
Ooh, I'm about to. Let's see what this comes out to. So if we go Titans team total over, Titans plus 2.5, under in the game, plus 451.
I'll Venmo you. I'll Venmo you.
Well, here's the thing. If we're going team total over 16.5, game total under 36.5.
Yeah.
It might be smarter to just take the Titans money line.
It's true.
Because Titans plus 2.5, we're theoretically limiting ourselves. The only way that parlay wins without Titans plus 2.5 would be it wouldn't, because the Steelers would have to actually, if they win 19-17, then it would all cash.
Then it might.
So here's what we're going to do. We're going to change it to Titans money line in the parlay.
All right.
That takes us up to plus 460. Then we'll hedge out of it before the game even starts. Exact score, Steelers 19, Titans 16, Titans 17.
All right. Gardening expert, Sam Yarnell, ladies and gentlemen. Sam, we'll see you on Friday for Page versus the Prince, my friend.
Sounds good, Jason. We'll talk to you then.
That is Sam Yarnell. All right, welcome back. It's time to talk some NFL, and who better to do it with than our friend Jason Cole, who does a terrific job. Outkick.com, senior NFL writer there, giving us some thoughts on what's going on around the league. And Jason, you have to start with what happened with the Raiders this week. Obviously, the decision to fire Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler, the general manager. On a level of 1 to 10, what was your level of surprise when you saw the move?
7. I mean, I expected that they were eventually going to get fired, and so it was sort of a fait accompli. But this early raised it closer to 10, and especially in the middle of the night kind of thing, not even having a press conference to announce it, just like come out and leak the story out as late as you possibly can. Look, this has now become the standard operating procedure for the Raiders under Mark Davis. You get a coach, he only lasts a short period of time, boom, he's gone, because Mark is not patient. Mark doesn't really understand what it takes to be good in football. He hires bad people from the start. He pretends that he can recreate what his dad had and then realizes he can't. And now you've gone through 7 coaches in 13 years since he took over when his father passed away. It's, places a nut house, and there's no other way to put it. And I'm not saying that Josh McDaniels did a great job. Don't get me wrong. But, you give it more than a season and a half. Like you really do. And especially when you signed him to a 6-year contract, you do more than a season and a half. And I will also say this. Josh McDaniels is also partly to blame for this, because he went to work for a guy who doesn't understand how to run a team.
Yes, it's very true. It's also weird because now they've decided to go to Aiden O'Connell, and you're putting Antonio Pierce as your interim head coach. Like, it just seems like the confluence of events and the way all of this is sort of coming together or coming apart, depending on how you're looking at it. None of it adds up. Like, it just doesn't seem like there's a cohesive plan. And I get it. This goes back to Mark Davis.
Well, wait a second. There isn't a cohesive plan. This is seat of the pants. Just do whatever you think makes the fans stop booing you, right? And part of the problem is that Mark is too close to the fans. Because look, fans want to fire the coach anytime they lose. There's always that, we think that Twitter represents reality. All right. And that Twitter represents what logical people think. Logical people do not go on Twitter to rage about the coach of the Raiders. Illogical morons do that, right? And people who are, trying to get information out to those illogical morons, okay? As John Elway once said, Twitter is a megaphone for morons, okay? And that's just the way it is. Stop trying to appease those people. They're not going to like you. They'll like you only if the team wins. They'll like you if over the long period of time you run the team in a dignified manner and try to win year over year. Like you have to become the Rooneys, right? Who are professional at what they're doing, or like the Hunt family. They're professional at what they're doing. And even the Hunt family takes a lot of crap from time to time. Early on, Clark, after he took over from his father, first 5 or 6 years, he didn't know what he was doing either, okay? But he finally got a solid coach and figured it out and left those people alone, okay? Mark has not done that, and therefore, anytime the fans start yelling at him, and then he engages them with a phrase like "smarten up," it's a disaster waiting to happen.
Am I crazy? We were talking about this yesterday on the show. Is it crazy to think, when we start looking ahead at who becomes a candidate for this job in the offseason, is it crazy to start thinking about somebody like Deion Sanders as sort of the big splashy potential hire for this team?
No, it's not. Deion would be probably really good in that position. I mean, Deion's smart. If you've watched what he's really doing at Colorado, and they're not playing as well before as they did, right from the beginning of the season, because they're not very deep. Guys have gotten hurt and all that, and they weren't very good to begin with, right? But they're way, way better than they were a year ago, right? Like they weren't even competitive a year ago in games. They were getting just crushed week after week. Now they're competitive, right? And that's a big first step. Deion knows what he's doing. He hired an incredible coaching staff. He knows how to talk to people, and he knows, what he wants to do. But I don't think that this is Deion's mission. Like, Deion doesn't need the money, right? He's doing this because he wants to be there for his own kids. He wants to coach them. And I think he wants to coach, as he said time and again, he wants to coach young men and help them progress on and to live up to their dreams and aspirations, both, professionally as football players and personally. And I think that's serious. Whether you agree with or disagree with his viewpoint on how you should live your life, I think his intentions are incredibly earnest.
But do you think so in that vein, do you think he doesn't?
I don't think he does.
Do you think Mark Davis makes the call, first of all?
Absolutely, 100%. I would make the call. I'd want to do my research on the guy because I'm really impressed with a lot of things that Deion does. He's made his mistakes. Don't get me wrong. Like throwing your offensive lineman under the bus in the middle of the season, not the smartest thing in the world. Okay. But he's learning how to be a coach along the way. And so, okay, I'll accept a few mistakes, but overall he's getting better players there. They're playing good football. They're well coached. He understands how to manage games and expectations and the people who are coaching with him. And he's got some swagger that I really, really enjoy. I think, he's fun. He's really fun for the game. So, yes, I would make the phone call. I think the answer is probably no. And I think that Deion is also smart enough to say, if I go work for Mark Davis, I have to have an ironclad contract that I'm in charge. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. And even then, you never really have an ironclad contract. The owner always. The only question for the owner is how much does he have to pay to get out of your contract?
Yeah, it's absolutely true. Jim Harbaugh? Or do you think he's ticketed for the Bears if Eberflus continues to sort of blow up there?
Look, Jim Harbaugh and Al Davis were really close. They were really, really tight. In fact, when he went to go and take the head coaching job at the University of San Diego, Al Al famously said, Jim, that's USD, not USC. Right?
That's great.
And they laughed about that one. So if Mark feels that same way or has any kind of connection to Jim Harbaugh, I certainly think that he's going to talk to him. I think Jim's going to have the same trepidation. Like if I'm looking at it, I'm getting a job offer from either Mark Davis or the McCaskey family. I'm going like it's like from the Deer Hunter. Do I want one bullet or two? Right?
It's a great question. The situation in Minnesota as it relates to quarterback. I mean, they're 4-4, which is remarkable considering where they were through the first 3 games of the season. You know, this team is sort of battled, and you could be thinking about a third wild card spot. I don't know if Joshua Dobbs is the guy that gets you there. What do you make of what the Vikings have done with the Cousins injury now and sort of where that team is?
Look, they're taking their best shot at it. And look, in the first early part of the season when they were losing games because of all the turnovers they had, they were performing like a team with a winning record. And they really are closer to a team that is with a winning record and playoff aspirations. They did a couple of things early this season. Number one, getting rid of Dalvin Cook was not wise. But number two, the turnovers are, you can't overcome those things. But if you look at like advanced metrics on how they were playing actually really good football. All right. So they are, as I said last year they were much closer, not a 13-win team. They were much closer to being a 9 or 10-win team. And early this season, as much as people were thinking, oh my God, they could go 2-15. No. They're much closer to a 9 or a 10-win team. Just you have to play through the flows of the game, and sometimes you're going to get unlucky. So yes, they're doing the best they can. It never really works to trade for a quarterback in the middle of the season. It just doesn't. He's got too much to learn, not just the offense itself, but the players around him, all those things. You can try your best to kind of trick it up, but that's really all you're doing. You're just kind of tricking it up to try and get to the playoffs.
What's the panic meter 1 to 5 on Brock Purdy out there in the Bay Area with the Niners?
Oh, I'm sure it's closer. It's probably close in, about 3 or 4. Which is absurd. Like the reverse,
yes,
they should.
It is absurd. It's absolutely absurd.
Right. And because look, he hasn't been the solution, but he wasn't really the solution before. He was playing very well. I give him a lot of credit, and he plays with guts, and he's a great processor and all those kinds of things. And you stick with him at quarterback. But you've gotten lit up the last 2 weeks by Minnesota and Cincinnati. The problem is your defense. More than your quarterback. That's a bigger problem that they've had. And look, even in the Minnesota game, where, they're 2 feet away from him, everybody talking about how Brock Purdy led the great comeback at the end of the game because Jacob Moody misses the field goal by 2 feet to the right-hand side. If he just makes the field goal, the whole narrative is completely different. So, this is the nature of quarterbacks, particularly young quarterbacks that are unproven, and in particular quarterbacks who, look, a lot of people out there say, look, he was never really that good. You're right. He was never that really that good. He's better than he was drafted, and he has special qualities that make him really interesting and a great solution in the short term for a team when everything's perfect. But when you take Trent Williams and Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey is banged up, there's a good chance that you're not going to score a lot of points and your defense is not going to play well. Like Nick Bosa has been invisible here for the last 3 weeks.
Does Chase Young, how much does he enhance what they're going to do defensively?
He's a good player. He's a really good player. He's not become what he was supposed to be, but he's a good player. And for a 3rd-round pick, I'll take that shot anytime. You just add more guys who help get to the quarterback because everything in this league is about get to the quarterback. Harass the quarterback, get him on the ground, do whatever you have to do. Yes, you want to do some things. If you're playing Detroit, you got to, get them to be your run-based team and make them a little more one-dimensional with Jared Goff, obviously. But you still have to get to the quarterback, and that's what Chase Young helps.
Jason Cole, senior NFL writer, insider over at Outkick.com. Always good to talk to you, my friend. Be well.
Likewise. Thanks, Jason. Take care.
All right, a couple of final thoughts to wrap up the show this week. One on the state of starting quarterbacks in the NFL, the other about the passing of a complicated basketball icon. That's next. All right, a couple of final thoughts to close out the show this week. The first is on the state of play when it comes to starting quarterbacks in the NFL. It's as volatile a time in the league when it comes to the position as there's ever been. Between lackluster play and injuries, there was a chance that Week 9 could have as many as a dozen quarterbacks starting for teams that weren't the starting QBs when the season started. And sure, injuries will happen, and teams have to scramble for another option. But the lack of patience that we see from GMs and owners alike is pretty jarring. We talk about lack of security and in some cases, fair salaries for running backs around the league. But it feels like now, more than ever, the trapdoor for QBs is always ready to swallow up a starter. Desmond Ridder is the latest QB to see the carpet pulled out from under him in Atlanta. Arthur Smith's team has seen its share of ups and downs from the signal caller that has started a whole 12 games for last year, another 8 this season. His numbers are pedestrian, but hardly negative to the degree that a benching is needed or warranted for a team that's still figuring some things out. I want to give you 5 quarterbacks and how their careers started as we ponder Ridder's benching. Start with John Elway. A 4-6 record with 7 touchdowns and 14 interceptions in his rookie season. Troy Aikman, you know him, 0-11 record with 9 TDs and 18 INTs in his first year in the league. A 7-8 record in year 2 with 11 touchdowns and 18 picks. Peyton Manning, 3-13 with 26 TDs and 28 interceptions as a rookie. Phil Simms, first 3 years in the league, he was 14-20 with 39 touchdowns and 42 interceptions. Drew Brees, a 10-17 record with 28 TDs and 31 interceptions in his first 2 years. Today, those guys might be talking with their friends at the bar about their careers and what could have been. They probably would have been benched, relegated to backup duties for several years before calling it a career. But what do they all have in common? They all won at least one Super Bowl. I'm not saying Desmond Ridder or any of the other QBs that have or will be benched would have been eventual Super Bowl winners had they been given more time. But when you take a step back, you have to start wondering if teams' lack of patience with young quarterbacks is a bigger problem than giving them too much time to grow and develop their abilities at one of the toughest positions in all of sports. And now, to the passing of Hall of Fame basketball coach Bobby Knight. The news came down on Wednesday of the former Indiana men's basketball coach's passing. He was 83. His 1979 Indiana team went undefeated. They're the last team to do it in men's college basketball. He won 3 national championships. But if you look at the comments coming after his passing in the hour since, they all have a familiar ring to them. While everyone acknowledges Knight's excellence as a basketball mind and coach, they're forced at the same time to acknowledge his shortcomings as a human being. We often use the term complicated to describe people like Bob Knight. But sometimes it could also be much simpler than we make it out to be. Knight was a perfectionist when it came to everyone except himself. That doesn't make him a good or a bad person, it just makes him human. There was Bob Knight the coach and Bob Knight the person. One was great, the other didn't meet the expectations that he set for others. The second of those two ultimately hurt the former and the way we view it now. But make no mistake about it, he is one of the greatest basketball coaches to ever do it at the collegiate basketball level. Many will say that bringing up Knight's shortcomings so close to his passing is unfair, or that we should wait to talk about such things. But the sad truth is this: in a few more days, or a week or two, or even a month or two, we'll be on to the next thing. We lurch from story to story, evergreen to evergreen. This is the time to give Knight his due as an amazing basketball mind that accomplished much while unwittingly damaging his legacy, mostly due to ego and foolish pride. That'll wrap things up for this week's show. I'm Jason Page. We'll see you back here next week.